Hey, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. I'm here today with one of my personal heroes, the one and only Rebecca Dutcher of Red66. Thank you so much for being here. It's awesome to have you.
My pleasure. What an introduction.
Yeah, I specifically didn't tell you that I was going to do that. I wanted a natural reaction.
Great. My cheeks are getting flushed.
Awesome. Hopping into it, I'll start with a fun question. Because you and I are roughly the same age, and you've been in the game a lot longer than I have, but we've been in the game a while. Do you remember your first experience with the internet when you were like a teenager?
I think I'm a little older than you, so it was actually college.
Oh.
I think it was Lycos. I remember doing some research at Davenport for some papers and things I was working on, where everything was just, like an IT company did it, and it was just words on a page, printed off a lot of research.
That was probably the first time you ever used the internet for anything like useful. Mm-hmm. Was that your first experience ever actually being on it? Do you remember?
I think so. Yeah, I think that and MapQuest or Yahoo Maps were about it.
I'll tell you about my first experience with the internet. I had a friend who had the internet, and I don't know why he had it. I think his mom had it related to her job or something. She had it in the house. Well, we lived in Charlotte. We lived in a small town. You couldn't buy it buy it. But like for some reason she had it. And so we were at his house after school one day. And no parents, no supervision. So we jump on there, and all I think it was AOL. And there's just this menu of different websites you could go to. And one of them was, or they weren't even websites, they were just apps, I guess. But one of them was MTV, and you could type stuff in, and TRL Live would have a scrolling ticker at the bottom, and they would show all of the stuff that people were submitting. And so we just kept typing in swear words, trying to get them through their filter, trying to get swear words live on MTV. And I don't think we were ever successful, but that's my first distinct memory of using the internet. For an actual utility, it wasn't until my senior year of high school. We actually had an internet class that was optional, and I was lucky enough to get into that class. And so I never did any of the classwork. I just jumped on there and looked up guitar tablatures and then printed them out and took them home. And so that was my first experience with the internet as a utility. But the reason I asked that question is because there's so many younger generations now that they don't even know life of no internet or of no phones or of no tablets. I remember when Dominic was 2 years old, my youngest son, and he could pull out a tablet and manipulate the menus to watch the shows that he wanted to watch just by recognizing the logos and stuff. It was kind of profound the first time I ever saw him manipulate such a device.
Oh yeah. I mean, Brett's 20 now, my son, and he knows nothing but, right? He could navigate things and push buttons and video games and being able to perceive that 2D video games and things like that. He's incredible at it. When I try and play with him, I just spin around on camera and look up and down. I can't do anything.
Yeah, those controllers have too many buttons on them. I miss the old Nintendo controllers. Those 2 buttons and a diagonal thing. You only move your character in 4 different ways. It was perfect for me.
Give me Mario Kart any day.
Why don't you go ahead and tell the audience a little bit about Red66, how you started it, why you started it, and what you guys are all about?
I started Red66 about 8 years ago. I had worked for 3 or 4 different agencies for the 15 years prior. So I learned a little bit from each and every agency I worked at, from SEO and web development, integrated communications, brand and creative design, and even using contractors, cash flow, and other things from the business perspective. I was on the board for Grow, Grand Rapids Opportunities for Women, and the CEO at the time encouraged me to hang out my own shingle and offered to help me get things started. So I did. And here we are. It was wild.
You've been killing it ever since.
Well, that's what everybody sees. There's a lot of ups and downs, as you know, being a business owner. But yeah, it's been an incredible ride, 8 years, and I'm excited to see what happens in 25.
One of the things that the audience is really going to care about is client acquisition, because a lot of this audience is going to be people that are either struggling with their own agencies or trying to start an agency, or people that are thinking about starting an agency. And as you know, client acquisition is the crux of everything, and it's the biggest pain point that literally everybody everybody experiences.
Yeah.
And so I've always admired your approach to that and your ability to build relationships and gain speaking opportunities and your ability just to project yourself and get yourself in front of the right people, which is the hardest thing to do because it's all about relationships. Would you care to talk a little bit about how you've managed to be so awesome at that?
A lot of it is getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. I mean, the agency where we met when we worked together, there I was encouraged to, get outside my comfort zone. I did not like going to networking events or, being a sales or business development person because no one really likes salespeople. But that's where I started and just built those relationships that way. Always looking out for, the client and having their best interest in mind, even if I couldn't help giving them good connections. So building a network is really important. As I've grown, I have tried to speak at different organizations, different events, share my knowledge. That even goes back to starting a blog before people were really taking to blogging. I think 2007, 8. So things that clients or prospects would ask me, I would actually write about and then share the article with them and others. And again, that's something I learned along the way, which has helped with that thought leadership. But reaching out to people, staying visible in social media, building your personal brand, that's all helped with, client acquisition, but sales and building those relationships. And then we got lucky and found a couple of niches with some clients that referred us to their friends and colleagues across the country, which that really helped us grow.
Yeah, you kind of never know which direction it's going to go once you start building those relationships. And then, you've kind of piggybacked off of those verticals. But if somebody was just starting out, what advice would you dispense to them when it comes to building relationships and doing this the right way?
Well, I look at the people that you do know. One of the things that always worked when I was starting out was even local chambers of commerce and other networking groups, the AMA, and getting to know people. But those in your network, letting them know that you're looking to build or grow or looking for, clients or companies to work with and helping with projects to start and grow it that way. But really, it took me 8 years to figure it out, but looking at, what you're really good at and sticking to that where you can really make a difference in the work that you're doing for that company or that customer.
So it sounds like you're saying that if somebody were just starting out and they wanted to build an agency or even just a freelance lifestyle, the best thing that they should do is leverage their existing network first. Tell them what they're doing, how they're looking to add value. And I always say you have to give value before you ask for anything in return. And I'm sure you're of a similar mind.
Amen. Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. LinkedIn, your social media presence, LinkedIn is definitely about the work that we do for clients, but also from an agency ownership perspective. A post a few weeks ago was a team photo from the holidays, and someone said that we needed to increase diversity, but you don't see the diversity in that photo. So just the different things that you experience that make people stop and think. But again, building that personal brand and that digital brand that's where people are going to find you first. So making sure that is rock solid in who you are, what you do, and how you bring value. And then, ask people for referrals. It's uncomfortable, but it works.
Yeah, it sounds like you're saying your reputation really needs to precede you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, let's talk about clients for a little bit. You mentioned the verticals of can I say basically the uniform and uniform industry and the verticals related to that. It's the kind of things you don't even think about. Like you mentioned earlier off camera, the chemicals that are required to wash the uniforms and the companies that sell them and then the companies that wash the uniforms. Mm-hmm. It's just kind of like amazing how those supply chains kind of go down the pipeline and how one opportunity can lead to another.
Yeah. A lot of my agency work was with business to business companies. So they're selling to other businesses, which is all about building your brand, lead generation. That one, getting into the uniform textile rental industry was because of one particular client I had. It goes back to 2013, actually, 2 agencies before I started my own. And starting with a website and then building that relationship and doing some really cool things for them. And then they referred me to a few other colleagues because they're all regional. And then they actually have an association for independents, which I joined as a preferred supplier over the years. Then got to contribute to their print publication, and then got to speak at their convention and different breakout groups. So that's really what's built our visibility with that group, which gives us a lot more credibility with other industrial type clients too. So we work with fluid manufacturers, hydraulic fitting manufacturers, LED lighting, really sexy things, but also a lot of professional services too. So anyone that's looking to generate a lead.
Yeah, that's really valuable. Just how that kind of snowballed. Mm-hmm. And it's not the kind of thing you can force to make happen. It's got to happen organically because you're a person of value and your company is valuable. And when that's the case, that it just kind of snowballs. That's one thing that I've found, in that I dispense a lot of advice to people that are looking to get into the industry, and everything revolves around their reputation. And they don't seem to understand that. They seem to think that there's just this like combination of words that they have to say to a prospect or somebody that they don't even know, and they're just magically going to hire their company. And that's not the case. It took me a long time to learn that myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, as soon as you reach out to someone, they're going to check you out online, right? They're going to see who you are. And I remember, again, I used to do a lot of cold calling and see if people needed help with their website. That's how I started. And I remember going to one meeting and the owners were like, how do we get this meeting? And I said, I called them. So that was very rare because they're like, wow, that really worked. But a lot of it is, and you think about where your best clients come from and your best relationships, it's introductions from someone else, it's word of mouth referrals, and the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. There's a lot of connections out there. You just need to ask for it. And one example that's been on my mind a lot is everyone, they see my highlight reel, LinkedIn, Facebook. Oh, you guys are growing, so you hired someone else. And I'm kind of like, you haven't seen the people that left, right? Or that we were way overstaffed a year ago and had to lay off a couple. So keep that in mind. But being open, honest, and transparent, that's actually my next LinkedIn post, is it isn't what you see isn't always what you get. So keeping it real, not just all fluff, so that people can really get to know you and see the challenges, but how you overcome them too.
That, and there's still new challenges replace old challenges. Mm-hmm. You get one problem solved and you think you're good. And then what happens? Somebody puts in their notice, or there's a million things that can go wrong.
Where'd you come up with that one? Yeah. Lots of things. Growing an agency, when I started, it was myself and a couple of subcontractors that I knew, and that gave me a good way to grow and scale without having a lot of overhead. An agency, when you're digital, you can work from anywhere. That's the great thing. You need a laptop, an internet connection, and some knowledge. But as I grew and added more people, there's a lot of other things you need to think about, like registering your business and all your tax filings, and, are you an S Corp or LLC, but all of those things. And the last year, we spent a lot of time getting our processes in order because we grew so much for several years. 40% year over year over year. And we threw people at that growth and not a lot of process and consistency. So that's how we ended up a little overstaffed for the work that we were doing, but we had to get clear boundaries in our deliverables too, instead of just giving it all away.
But now that you've got that all sorted out, it's so much better for your client relationships too.
It is. We call it creating a loving fence around the things that we do for them. We have our main deliverables. We'll always do a little more for them, or move things around so that we're not nickel and diming them. That's how it goes, to get them what they need so they're successful and still make sure that, we're profitable.
Yeah, profit is definitely a very good thing. And, one of the things that I always tell people, that don't shy away from turning a profit. And that's one of the things that people, they kind of think profit is bad, charging a lot more than it costs you to provide the service. But one of the best things you can do for your clients is run a profitable agency, because if you're profitable, you're going to have money to invest into future improvements and new people. new software, AI. There's all these new things to invest in, and you're not going to be able to do that if you're not profitable. Mm-hmm. And if you're profitable, you're also going to be around. And if you're good at what you do, your clients want you to be around. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, it's one thing. Don't shy away from being profitable, because that's the best thing you can do for everybody, your team, yourself, your clients. Nobody loses when you're profitable.
Exactly. Yeah. And again, some of the lessons I learned in 23, we were not profitable. We were down 3%. So when we basically got our shit together, right? Early last year, I hired a fractional COO and a business coach that really helped us know our numbers for our monthly recurring revenue. And that's where we looked at how many people we need for the revenue and all that stuff. So in 24, we made $100,000 more in revenue than the year before. Not a lot, but we had an 8% profit margin compared to the year before where we were -3%. So it's not a lot, but yeah, there's a lot of tools we have to invest in now. AI tools, SEO tools, reporting tools, not to mention just Google Workspace and project management tools and all that stuff that you need to run the business.
Training tools, and then every time somebody leaves, they got to start the process all over again.
Yes, accounting people. Yeah. Well, and that's one, we had a lot of things documented, but now we're making sure it's followed by all. So our biggest goal this last year and still into this quarter is everyone's running the same plays on the same team. So we draw a lot of football analogies, right? So we have our core, but we have our special teams too. So making sure that everyone knows the playbook. And then we're actually using another AI type tool called Use Whale. So we have all of our processes in there and people can log in, go through them, and it's got everything linked, documented, so they can sign off if they've read it or they need to go back to review it. So it's not lost in a Google Drive folder somewhere.
I'm not familiar with that one. Use Whale.
Mm-hmm.
No, I'll have to look into that one.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. Yeah, we found a lot of different tools that I would love to tell you more about.
Well, there's a ton of them, and hundreds of them hit the market like every single week, it seems like.
Or day, every day.
Yeah.
It gets overwhelming, even looking through my own Instagram feed or LinkedIn, and it's like, oh my goodness, you can start to feel so left behind if you look at what everyone else is doing. But again, that's their highlight reels. So keeping that in mind. And the biggest thing when it comes to what we do in digital marketing and marketing in general is the consistency, because our clients' businesses don't change that fast. We need to keep up and we need to stay innovative. But if we're chasing bright, shiny objects and trends, we'll never be consistent or get ahead for the clients either.
Yeah, that's one of the principles that I built Moxie Man on, is consistency. And when I found a system that worked and tools that worked, I kind of just stuck with it, because you know as well as I do, there's always a new buzzword or a new acronym coming down the pipeline, and it's just a way for people to make themselves sound smart. And that's kind of the position I've always taken. So I kind of started to ignore all of that, all these different like algorithm changes and, acronyms, EEAT, and I know what that one means, but there's a lot of them that I don't. And one of the things that I found is that clients and potential clients, they don't care about that. They only care about the end result. Are you able to get their site to rank in search engines? Can you drive leads and traffic to their site? If you can execute on that, the buzzwords really don't matter. Mm-hmm. And it's one of the things that I've always tried to kind of get across to people and to clients and prospective clients and even team members. One of the things I learned from you, like when we were together at Mindscape, which we'll probably talk about a little bit. One of the things you said to me, and I think you were mad at me when you said this, you said big words are a salesperson's enemy. Do you remember that?
Vaguely. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we are in a world of acronyms, but when you're talking to presidents and CEOs or even the executives at our clients, they don't want to be sold or, impressed with all the knowledge that you have. They want to know, how can you help me? What's it going to take? What are you doing so that I understand it? And then trust you to do the job. But it was funny. I actually did a team training today and talking about ROAS and KPIs and data-driven, And I'm like, yeah, really, this just means what's their goal? How are we going to measure it? And then giving them charts and graphs to show what we've done and the impact it's had. So just keep it simple.
One of the things I found, especially in discovery meetings, those initial discovery meetings, is that they've almost always talked to another consultant, or they're coming to us off of a bad experience with another agency. And so they've already heard the spiel. And so I always say, hey, listen, I'm not going to go through all of that. I'm assuming you know what all these things already mean because you've already been talking to other people. So we're just going to get down to, the brass tacks, so to speak. And I found that they really, really like that. I mean, it's a more organic conversation too.
Agreed. Yeah, there's a lot of pain in our industry, right? Or people that have worked with agencies who said they do this but didn't. In one of the industries that we're in, another agency was bought through private equity and merged with someone else. So their customer service, their monthly meetings, reports, and things, those aren't happening. So you look for, again, what pains are they having that you're inheriting, basically? Or they're afraid, like, oh, I was promised this and this never happened. How are you going to be different? There's education, but there's also making them feel safe that you know what you're doing, but you're not going to overwhelm them with gobbledygook information they're not going to understand.
That's key. And all you have to do is ask them. Because if are you currently under retainer with another agency? They'll say yes. Right, well, why aren't you sticking with them? Where are they falling short? What are you looking to improve on? They'll tell you exactly where you need to be. And then it's just up to you to decide if you can meet those needs, which is important because you can't just tell them what they want to hear. They're going to see through that. And if you do that and you suck, you're going to get fired in 3 months. And getting fired as an agency is one of the worst things that can happen because how much time and energy you put into building that relationship and acquiring their business in the first place. If a client cancels their contract in the first year, that's a disaster for Moxie, man. I'm sure you probably look at it the same way.
Yeah, absolutely. Same. That, and you feel terrible, right? It's a loss. It sucks.
Yeah, I've found
most of them. I should say most of them. Sometimes you're like, okay, bye.
Yeah, every once in a while, there's one that's just like, okay, best of luck.
Yep.
Just don't ever contact me again.
Yep.
And a lot of times they do. But
that's funny. I had one come around a couple times, and I'm like, never again will I work with this person again. So, nope.
It's the beauty of having a mindset of abundance. That there's a million opportunities out there, and it's just a matter of providing value to a few of them. Because if you provide value, they're probably not going to cut you loose because they're coming off of a bad experience. So being good at what you do is a huge asset, and having a demonstrable track record of success is a huge asset when it comes to building trust.
Yeah, I stopped in to visit a client last week, actually, and they have a sales and marketing assistant. And they've had probably 5 or 6 people in that spot since we've been working with them the last 11 years. And they all want to do the marketing. And the owner says, but I have Red, so I don't need them to do that. I need them to do more on the sales side and commission things internally, right, to keep things moving. But that was pretty remarkable to hear him say that. And it's, I don't know, it's awesome, right? When clients trust you that much, they're like, we have no desire to hire someone to replace you because of all the different things that you can do with a team for less than a salary.
Yeah, you just touched on it right there. For less than the cost of one full-time salary, you get access to a team of people that are highly motivated and talented and experienced, and you get to leverage that. There's certainly a place for in-house marketing people, and I actually prefer it when one of our clients does have an in-house marketing person, just somebody that speaks the language. It makes things so much easier, but it doesn't always work out that way. And so there's sort of an understanding that if they don't have in-house marketing, is sort of an understanding that Moxie Men is their in-house marketing, kind of from a de facto standpoint.
Yeah, when you're looking for clients and want to know if they're going to be a good fit, if they have someone that at least boots on the ground oversees sales and marketing, that becomes your point of contact. If you're trying to chase down a president, CEO, or business owner, marketing is just one of the tiny little things they're in charge of. Imagine operations and sales and buildings and all these other things that they're also in charge of. We have had experiences where we tried to work with a general manager of a huge company, and he was supposed to be the one driving and approving these website development projects. It was a disaster because we were always waiting. And even though there were other people in the meeting, he wouldn't let anyone else make the decision to move forward. So that just stalled everything out and made us look bad because it took so long. That I was, not a fan when that happens. And I always say, because, marketing is so important, but executives have so many other things on their plate that half our job is following up on things sometimes, right? We're just pleasantly persistent. Hey, did you review that blog yet? Have you seen that social? Is this creative approved? And that's why we do our monthly meetings. So they at least have a by when, or a deadline, or you get them in a meeting to review and approve things.
Yeah, I found that sometimes you just got to pick up the phone and call them. I had one this morning where we just were waiting on feedback on about 3 or 4 different line items. It was holding us up. We had a project that should be further along, and I told them exactly that. We should be further along at this point, and we're not because we haven't got what we needed. And that kind of speaks to how you have to have a relationship built on honesty. And if you have great clients and you have that understanding to begin with, it's not personal. We're trying to deliver value on your behalf, and you're sabotaging us almost.
Right.
Now, I wouldn't go so far as to call it sabotage, but our clients have 99 problems, and marketing isn't one of them. So to steal a line from somebody. So.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and there's some clients, they travel a lot that we work with, and I'll get some who will, I'll text them on a Sunday to try and get their response, and that's when I get the most response. And, you make yourself available for when it works for them. And our whole team lives by that too. We have some clients who are texters. They're not email or phone. So we text them instead. Yeah.
Figuring out the best way to communicate with them, that's 99% of it. Because once you figure that out and how to actually get a response, we have a client where I'll send him a text, hey, we need to get a call scheduled. And then a lot of times we don't have to call because he knows what I want to talk about.
They know.
Yeah. They know exactly why I'm calling. And sometimes I get them on the phone in 15 minutes. I'm like, okay, got 4 items on the docket. Let's get these banged out. And then that's it. And then the project, kind of starts flowing again. And so I get it. They're busy people, and they're not used to participating in the process of building a website or creating content or whatever it happens to be. That's what they hire us to do. But they still have to have an understanding of what we're doing and why and what the end results we're looking for.
And that's a conversation I had with our team today is, we shouldn't, I hope we're not, we are never shouldn't be asking a client what they want us to do. I mean, obviously we want to do what they want, but when we see metrics and reports here's the recommendation, here's what we should be doing, where sometimes clients want a sell sheet or a design piece, and it's like, okay, well, we need to do this, right? We need to capitalize on this opportunity, get these ads approved, and then we can do that piece. We don't want to sit there and be order takers. You want to lead the client enough that they're comfortable.
It's challenging because they're the one writing the check. So when they write the check, they're the one that they get what they want. The challenge is every once in a while, a client will come to us. They say, hey, we want to do this, this, and this. Or we added this product line. We need to get a blog post and a static page. That's awesome. I love it when they do that. I wish we could get more of that.
Yeah.
But most of the time it's, hey, here's some ideas for quarter 2. This is what we did in quarter 1. This is what the results were. And here's some ideas. And they're like, okay, sounds good. Go for it. And then we'll talk to them again in 3 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We take that approach too. Here's their sales and revenue goals for the year, whether it's cross-sell, upsell, new sales. And then we back out, and have a quarterly strategy and then the monthly content calendars, themes, and campaigns that we're doing and evaluate those every month. So it adjusts. And sometimes they'll just send random ideas because as they think of them, and we just kind of put them in a parking lot for when it makes sense to pull those out. Or they do have a new initiative, like a client wants to build a route or really capitalize on a new market area. Okay, well, we're going to take our core focus of our work this quarter to build that out while we keep, the lights on the other things, paying attention to their goals and making sure everything's aligned and getting their insights on numbers. We can see leads generated and traffic and all that, but what's the lead quality? How are sales? Getting those metrics is really beneficial from a marketing perspective too.
Yeah, it's a Moxie requirement that clients share sales numbers or at least some degree, some metric beyond just the numbers that we can see like you just spoke to.
Ooh, a requirement.
It is.
Nice.
It's in our contracts.
I'm going to have to see that. Please.
All right, it might be a verbal contract.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Client expectations, it's funny because a lot of us, we did a client survey year end and they all want lead generation, but there's a lot that goes into that. Like marketing is not just lead generation. Marketing is also building your brand, so you have that good presence out in the social sphere, but when they're searching, when they get an email, when they see one of your vehicles, because we have a lot of, uniform truck delivery, not just a logo. We want it to be eye-catching because those are moving billboards. That's all part of your brand awareness and package. And that supports the lead gen because you've built that confidence. But I just did a presentation on that a couple weeks ago. So marketing is not just lead generation. So get that defined up first.
Yeah, well, lead generation is the result they're looking for. And it's understandable for a business owner to be results oriented because they're spending money and they're looking for a specific result. And I found that clients don't care about traffic numbers. They don't care how many keywords their site ranks for. They like to see the numbers grow because that's progress they can look at. But all they really care about is dollars in their bank account, and that you're putting more dollars in their bank account than you're asking for in return. And if you do that, your services are technically free as an agency owner. And if your services are free, why would they ever cancel?
Right.
And
well, that's the ROI acronym, right?
What's that stand for again?
Return on investment.
That's what I've heard.
And then ROAS, return on ad spend. Anyway. And that's, again, we went through reporting today with our team. We've been doing these weekly trainings. We got a cool grant from the Going Pro Talent Fund. And we talked about the KPIs and the leads. So we do have conversions in our reporting, but let's talk about those leads. Take a minute in the meeting, look at the form fills, like what happened here. Some of our clients have it connected to their CRM so we can see what's happening, and not all do. But that's how we make our conversations even more sticky. Like, these are what came in. What's marketing qualified? What's sales qualified? And then what are you actually doing proposals for so that we can find more like those?
Yeah, and that just speaks to the relationship you have to have with your clients. A lot of clients, they just want to not participate in the process, and they end up not being very good fit because 6 months down the road, when it didn't work as well as they expected, they ended up canceling their contracts or complaining, or even worse, complaining about you publicly. We don't really have that happen because we've gotten pretty good at figuring out who's going to be a good client and who's not. Got a little bit more of a lighthearted question. Can you remember the silliest reason a client ended their contract?
Funny story. So you'll like this one. I had a client. It's funny because he sold his company, so he has money to invest, and he started one a couple of years ago. To sell PPE and things like that. So we helped him. He had the name, but we built the brand, we built the site, we designed the trucks, we had all the collateral. And then after like 3 months, he pulled the plug because he's like, I don't want to grind it out anymore. And that's what this is going to be. Because when he was going in, we're like, you've heard of Granger, right? All these things that he wanted to do. So he pulled the plug on that. So then he comes back around that a year later. I've invested with these 3 guys, and we're going to do barbershop salon products online, and we'll do a discount for professionals, and we've got boots on the ground. I'm like, that's awesome. And he wanted a proposal in like a day or two to build a website. And he's like, I don't think your team can handle it because you're not responding fast enough. I'm like, okay, I've learned this. I'm like, okay, yep, nope, you're right, we can't. Fast forward 6 months later, he comes back. They don't like the agency that they selected. They've had nothing but issues with the site. Can we help them? And I said, we can, but there's quite a bit of work to do, and the results that you're expecting to see are not going to happen for a few months because you've got to clean up all this other stuff. Yep, I know. Okay, yep, all the partners were in agreement. 2.5 months in, the partners are like, yeah, we're just going to sell it to the barber guy, and the others aren't going to participate. So they hadn't paid any of our invoices. They're like, so we'll pay you those, we'll pay them monthly over 12 months, like $1,000 a month. And I was like, no, you won't. Anyway, the conversations kept going. We did get paid most of it, but that's where they were like, after the fact, well, these results were diluted and we should have gotten this. And it was, we documented everything because the site wasn't ready. The things weren't happening. The user experience was terrible. And then I'm like, is this the kind of guy that goes and has an amazing meal and then he eats it all and complains and doesn't want to pay for it? So you learn, right? You learn about people, but that was that was the most annoying one where I stood up for my team. And, I was like, this is just unprofessional and disheartening, really, after we poured a lot into those companies.
Yeah, that sucks. I've been in similar situations where you do everything within your power to help them be successful. And they stick with it, they will be successful. You wouldn't have taken it on in the first place. And, you kind of feel like you're their savior because you're coming in off of their experience with this other service provider. And then they still just throw you under the bus, and then they refuse to pay you. I mean, that's complete bullshit.
Oh, it is. And I said that. And the lesson there is, after the first experience, and then I didn't respond right away to the second one because I'm like, this guy doesn't know what he wants, right? And he's got enough money that he can do whatever he wants. So the lesson there is, if it doesn't feel right and you're like, I don't want to work with this person, don't, because those are pretty expensive lessons to learn down the road.
Yeah, that, and don't take on projects because you need the money. If you're in a position where you need the money as an agency owner, you're doing something wrong in and of itself. And so I'm not saying that that's what that situation was. It can be an expensive lesson, but it's going to be valuable going forward because you're going to recognize that the type of people you want to avoid. I've found that when people don't pull the trigger or are like really good communicators right away, or they play games like you just described off camera. You can tell that story if you want to.
Oh, yeah.
I found that when that's the case, they're not going to sign on with you. And even if they do, they might not stick around for very long, or they're going to be a pain in the ass to deal with, whatever it happens to be. It's not going to be a positive outcome.
Well, and we're a team of 13 people now, so it's not just what I want to do, but I think about who the account manager and the account team, how they're going to work with this person, what it's going to be like for them to work with. Because I think probably 95% of our clients we love on a regular basis. We want to help them. We're here for them. We'll educate them. We'll do whatever it takes to help them succeed. But occasionally you get someone that's just like, wow, I didn't see that coming. But yeah, the one I was talking about off camera is someone we've been talking to probably since September. Really inconsistent communication, and just weird vibes when I ask questions, do they have any questions, any feedback? And it's really vague, all to come down to, well, we're talking to one other company and you're number 2 right now. And I'm like, okay, well, after 6 months and really weird communication and like no real, they're not really saying anything. I'm like, you know what? I think that's probably okay given this whole process, and I wish you all the best.
Yeah, well, good for you for, seeing that for what it was in real time. Sorry you wasted 6 months on those people, but sometimes you got to go through that process before you know what you're dealing with. But, you saved your team a big headache too.
Yeah.
And it's awesome that you're in a position where you can turn down clients that aren't a good fit, because not everybody's in that position. Something else we talked about off camera.
Yeah. Well, it hurts sometimes, right? But you got to create the team. And that's the most important thing at this point. I learned, a few years ago when we brought on a franchise client to help them, I've learned a lot about the franchise world. It transformed our agency, but it was a lot of hard work. And it put 2 of my employees on their own island for that client, doing things we don't normally do. So they got a little left behind in professional development and gelling with the team.
Yeah, that's another important lesson, is to stick with what you're good at, and don't. I mean, it's one thing to take on new things to accommodate a good client, and all clients are good clients to a certain extent, but not all clients are created equal. And, you do bend over backwards for the right ones. But at the same time, you're actually doing them a disservice if you're trying to do things that you're not good at or not familiar with or don't necessarily believe in.
I was talking to a mat rental company up in Canada, and they're parting ways with their agency because the agency said, well, mats just aren't that interesting. And I'm like, isn't that the core of your business? And they have like 10 locations, which cover huge territories. Anyway, don't say that to a client. Your products just aren't that interesting.
That's what the agency said to them?
Yeah. Yeah. And I was like, oh, we have a lot of fun with uniform clients. Like, somewhere out there is a worker without pants because missed deliveries is one of the biggest complaints. But mats, can you imagine a world without mats, especially in northern states, right? Snow, rain, all the dirt, slip and falls.
When you're looking for an employee or a contractor, what qualities do you look for?
Looking for employees, anyone I want to work with or people we do work with, they've got to have some like initiative and give a shit about what they're doing. They got to be passionate about marketing and figuring things out, right? Solving problem. Because at the end of the day, what we're doing is solving problems for clients. While it's marketing for lead gen, we also do marketing for recruitment. We do marketing for retention. Even occasionally we'll have to do some PR or damage control things. Employees and contractors that really care and show that initiative. We talk about, I look for if people reach out, do they follow up? Do they have that? What kind of work have they done before? But are they relational? We think about our core values and we are persistent, right? We follow up on a lot of things. So if you're just kind of spotty on like an application or a follow-up, that tells a lot. We're relational, so building supportive relationships. We like to talk to past employers or coworkers and know what were they like to work with, because building relationships are so important. And then supportive, just being very supportive. So, we do a lot of things for a lot of clients, and our team is there to support each other, not just with the work, but personal things too. We had to relocate to different states this last fall. We had, my stepdad passed away last summer. One of our, people had other losses in the family, and everyone just gathers around. So it's like, don't worry, we've got you. Take all the time you need. So when you're looking for people to work with you and support the team, you want a lot of people that are just like that.
Kind of segues into AI. And we've had a lot of conversations about AI. And I was thinking about what that means for the future of employment. And I don't think there's going to be this mass exodus of workers like in our industry. AI is certainly going to cannibalize some of those jobs, but I don't think it's going to be like catastrophic like people seem to be predicting. But what I do think is that there's going to be an employment shift where right now kids come out of college or just transitioning into this industry, kind of like I did when I was 30 years old. And I was very much in take instruction mode. I was trying to be a sponge and learn as much as I could, but at the same time, I was kind of thrown to the wolves. It's like I was telling Pete last week. Like when I took the job at Mindscape, most people kind of start at the bottom when they break into this industry. Not so much the bottom, but like they're not dealing with multi-million-dollar companies and companies like Bissell and Two Men in a Truck and $200 million firms, and they had Legrand as a client, which was a $6 billion firm out of France. I was kind of like thrown into these meetings with these like corporate executives. You remember the guys from Shirvan, those two Chinese gentlemen that came over they came from China to take this meeting, and I'm talking in this meeting like I'm like know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It was terrifying. Like I would have never admitted it at the time, but I was so terrified about getting fired and, having it be over before it started. And so most people don't start out in that environment. Most people start out working like in agencies, like Moxie Mike, quite frankly, where we're dealing with, companies that are like in the $1 to $5 million range. And we have some larger clients too, and maybe a couple smaller ones, but most of them are kind of like right in that range. And so what I think as like more young people come into this industry, there's going to be a shift. And I think that shift is going to be, right now people show up in there and take instruction mode because they're trying to learn and they're just trying to do what's expected. And that's just kind of like their default. What I think is going to happen is new people into this industry and employees and contractors, whoever they happen to be, I think they're going to be expected to innovate a lot more. I think they're going to be expected to bring a lot more to the table because nothing's going to stay the same for very long. Just like right now, as we're speaking, the AI tools that are prolific right now, they're not going to be a year from now. New stuff's going to come on and it's going to take over the world, and maybe ChatGPT will still be the king, but it might not be. Something we've never even heard of right now may be killing it 12 months from now. And so I was throwing that out there, not so much as I have a question, but what's your perspective?
Yeah. I would say, we have several who started as interns and have been with us for a year or two now, moving on up. So when we hire them as interns, it's a good opportunity to learn how they work. They're paid. We do continue to invest in them because they are learning and doing client work alongside their schoolwork. But the ones that we've had, they do have that initiative, and you can see it in their classwork. And in fact, I have a professor at Davenport where I'm like, if you get another Megan, send them my way. And he did. It's spot on. We didn't necessarily have a full-time seat, but when she graduated, we hired her full-time because I don't want her to get away. What I find is that the younger professional, they have a lot of initiative. They will figure stuff out. They grew up with Google and apps and reels. Like Justin does that for me. I can't even do that. Or I ask my son to help me with something because they're comfortable with technology. What they need is some of the guidance and the strategy behind it and developing plans. But when you give them a thing to go after, I'm finding that they will. They totally rise to the occasion. But I had a conversation with 4 people today that it's time to grow. We are going to push you. You are going to learn a little more. They know how to do it, and they're going to have guidance from myself, our director of client service. But it is time to level up. And here's our playbook, right? They know the stuff. They're comfortable. But we're going to put their feet to the fire and ask them to do a lot more and get outside their comfort zone. And everyone's like, let's do it. Right? Let's do it. They're not afraid, but they're not alone. And that's part of the culture is they're not afraid to make a mistake because that's the only way they're going to learn. Like, someone had a typo on something that got printed and it's like, well, we got to redo our proofing process. And this was a long time ago, but it was a few $100 to reprint it for the client. It never went out. Little things like that. It's okay. I don't get mad or lose my shit. But it's like, what can we learn here? But the use of AI, for the last quarter, fourth quarter, we were looking at AI tools and how we can capitalize on it. So we have a person on our team. She's like our AI specialist, if you will. She's got prompts, prompt engineering, samples of things to do for different clients. And this quarter, we've looked at Jasper, we've looked at Perplexity, we've looked at others to create client projects. So it has their voice and everything. So when we need something, we've got basically custom chats for each client. So content is consistent. Now, we would never turn anything right over to a client from AI. But the comfort, right? It makes us more efficient so we can focus our time on strategy, getting more detailed content, more of that commercial intention and so what factor in those tools. And then as soon as we're looking in these twos, Gemini was extra for Google Workspace. Well, now it's not. They're just charging you extra. So it is, but you don't have a choice. And now they rolled out Notebook LM. So you can, and we have everything in client folders anyway. And I'm like, well, now do we need to look at Perplexity because this is happening so fast? All that to say it is going to change fast, but when you think about your process and your best practices, it can be a little tool agnostic because some of our team uses Claude, some uses Chat, some are using other things. We've used Gamma to create PowerPoint templates based on a Word doc. It's sharing and training that we do almost on a weekly basis with our team.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. What I think is going to happen is that a lot of the most prolific tools are going to be consolidated. Mm-hmm. Somebody's going to come along and buy up the most prominent ones. In fact, I'm surprised that hasn't already happened, quite frankly, because there's just so many tools that do the same thing. Like you just mentioned, Claude and ChatGPT and Gemini, they all basically do the same thing. It's really just a matter of which one you're comfortable with. But as you train it more and as it gets smarter and it learns how to deal with you, like ChatGPT is my buddy.
Just today, everyone has a personal roadmap, and I even use my bio, and we had it create create a tagline if I were a product and you had to market me. And it was so fun. Did you ever ask Chat to roast you?
Oh, all the time.
All the time, yeah. But it's great. So it's fun, but you can have a whole conversation back and forth, reviewing data, looking for insights. So again, it helps us move faster and be more efficient, but it's not replacing the thinking necessarily, but it's freeing up our brain power to think bigger.
Well, right now, its output is just text. and its output is just information, essentially, whether it's video avatars, whether it's an AI generated avatar like HeyGen or 11 Labs, which is cloning your voice. You still have to have that human input, and its output is really only as useful as your ability to implement it. But I think that's going to change really soon. I don't think it's going to be very long before a live language model is going to connect to a WordPress site. And it's already pretty remarkable. One time I wanted to make just a tweak on the page. I sent it a link to the page and just told it in plain language what I wanted to accomplish. And it gave me the CSS code and then told me where on the site to implement that CSS code. And it took 4 or 5 tries to get it right. But once I had it, I was done. I didn't need a developer. You know me, I'm not a developer.
Yeah, it is. It's exciting to see. In fact, we were talking about, we had a client that sent over some designs in Figma, but there's actually a plugin with Elementor. You can take a Figma design if it's built correctly, and it will pull it in and create the template for you. So there's a lot of efficiency, which is neat because we can do more with less staff, less overhead, but you got to, test the tools. And I look at it, all the tools, there's a lot that do a lot of the same things. Well, CRMs are the same way, right? It's which one are they going to use and they get the most. Email platform, same thing, right? Constant Contact, MailChimp, what is their Flow? All these different ones. And it's what the best ones are, the ones that clients use and like, or that our team uses and likes and gets good output.
Yeah, I think ease of use is going to be huge because that's the biggest barrier. Nobody has time to learn how to use all these new tools that are popping up onto the marketplace on a daily basis. And that's my biggest challenge. I'm sure you're faced with the same thing. Stuff pops up on my Facebook reel. Hey, that looks like a pretty good tool. But I don't have time to buy a test subscription. It's not even about the cost. They don't really cost that much, $20-$30 a month for most of them. It's not, the cost really isn't the issue. It's the time to get good at it just to find out if it's actually going to serve my needs or not. And that's why I think there's going to be a consolidation, because they're all kind of clamoring for the same piece of the pie. And I think there's going to be a lot of losers. It reminds me a lot of the internet when we first came out. Like when you got on the internet, other than trying to get swear words onto MTV, it didn't have a whole lot of utility at first. There wasn't really much you could do. And even when you got on there, it was super slow. It wasn't exactly obvious what you were supposed to be doing with it. But as it grew and the web became more prolific and it was easier to put content on the web, it grew exponentially. And now it's at a point where you can't remember life without it, and there's a lot of people on this planet that never have.
But I have been a part of this LinkedIn group through the Vistage CEO Roundtable that I'm on, where we have to do at least 3 posts a week, and then we share it in a group, and we have to go like and comment and to help boost our visibility and share valuable content. And it's been incredible. So I've been focusing a little more time there.
So you mentioned that you have a couple positions open. Would you care to plug them?
Actually, we will probably list positions in a couple months because we've got one person that leaves next week Friday. We've got to let the dust settle and give our team room to grow and improve and step up, and then really look at what skill set we're missing. Right now, I don't think there's a huge gap because we also have our key contractor and just added the director of client service with Stephanie a month and a half ago. So we're in a pretty good spot, which is nice. And a lot of the work that was being done is project work for some big websites that are getting closer to completion. So we'll evaluate that in early March. But you can always check out our careers page. We do accept applications, and sometimes we fill positions and never even have to post them because people share their resumes or we are looking for a particular person. So if there's a company you want to work for, just a bit of advice to some of the young professionals, reach out, build a connection. I've had coffee and meetings with people just because they're interesting and I want to know who they are. I don't know if I have anything immediately, but start that relationship because you never know.
Yeah, it reminds me of something that a recruiter once told me. He was a recruiter for the tech industry, and he would go to people that already had jobs and introduce himself, and they'd be 6 months into their 12-month contract, and he's like, it's like talking to the hot girl at the party. you have to talk to her while she still has a boyfriend, because she's not going to be single very long.
But yeah, I mean, that's one of our senior account managers. A recruiter found her and reached out to her. She wasn't looking. So,
Well, if somebody is looking right now and they see this conversation, would you be open to hearing from them?
absolutely.
All right, well, you want to look into this camera and tell them how they can reach you? We'll put it on there as well.
Yeah, you can visit our website, red66marketing.com, and just go to the careers page. You can also reach out to me on LinkedIn or our company page, because we monitor them all.
That's awesome. I know you do. You're very active on social media, way more than I am, but that's about to change.
I challenge you.
Challenge not accepted.
How many LinkedIn followers do you have right now?
I don't even think I've hit that 500 plus plateau yet. I get requests all the time, and I usually cancel. I usually just deny them because they're spammers, or
You can tell.
or somebody I just don't know. Like, I don't know this person.
Not just connections, but followers too. Because now people can follow you. They don't even have to be a connection.
Oh,
Isn't that fun?
probably less than 10. I don't know. I didn't. Yeah, I am not a social media expert, and I know enough about it to speak intelligently on it, but I don't even know how many followers I have. I have followers on Reddit. You know, people can follow you on Reddit too.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
So I don't spend a lot of time on Reddit, but I know it was interesting when Google was indexing Reddit threads for a while, but there's a little too much misinformation out there.
Well, you know what that's all about, right? You heard about the alliance between Google and Reddit? Yeah. Yeah, they have a $60 million contract. So Google is very highly motivated to send traffic to Reddit.
Yeah. Well, that user-generated content, right? That's what people believe the most.
Yeah, but they're...
Ew, that just made me feel weird because of fake news, and news travels so fast and not fact-checking things.
In my
I wonder
opinion,
what that's about.
Jeez, yeah. In my opinion, they're massively overdoing it with the Reddit posts in just about every search query you type in anymore. I think that it's probably past its saturation point. I think they're going to probably dial it back, because anytime somebody sees the same thing repeatedly, they get numb to it, and they're just going to naturally look for what's different. And so, because Reddit's good for what it's good for, but you're right, there's a lot of misinformation out there, and just a lot of useless just fluff. It's not even, I don't even call it misinformation. It's just useless. You know, if you like trying to troubleshoot a problem and you Google search it, and a bunch of Reddit posts come up because of a matching keyword from 5 years ago, you know, you're providing much value to your users, you know, from Google's standpoint. And so I think probably in the next year or two, you're going to probably see that get dialed back. I could be wrong. Maybe they'll lean into it more. Who knows?
I watched a webinar a couple weeks ago. Tom Capper, he's from Search Engine Journal and a stat site. But just interesting looking at AI overviews and search results for those informational searches, you know, and focusing more on that longer tail commercial intention. And that Google does that a lot for informational searches, but Google still needs to keep people there for... That's how they make their money, right? Paid ads, merchant accounts, all those things. It was interesting, just some of the things that he talked about, that those transactional commercial, you won't see the AI overviews there. And I think for the first time, Google's search, you know, they had 90% of search instead of 95 or 96%, because people are turning to things like ChatGPT, like you, and things like that. So it's interesting to see how that's going to continue to change. I mean, it's shifting the way we work on our content, right? Getting to the point and very useful information. And, you know, one thing that we've always done is, you have focused on deep SEO, and it's done huge work for your clients. We've done that at a good level, not near as deep as you, but we've also done social and email and the other marketing things. And it was interesting, another AMA luncheon I was at with a guy from HubSpot talked about all the different places where your content is, to look at that whole footprint, as well as making sure you're answering customer questions in that content when you put it in social or an email, because other people have those questions too.
Segueing into something that I've seen you post about, and it's something that I don't think a lot of business owners actually agree with about being vulnerable with your team and kind of talking about the struggles of being a business owner. That's kind of like, when we're at the top of the food chain, we're supposed to be stoic and invincible. And I think it's a very refreshing approach, for one. I very much admire you for that. Would you care to talk about that at all?
It's lonely at the top, and it was funny. Years ago, I had a smaller team and we were going somewhere and taking 3 vehicles. There was 6 or 7 of us and no one rode with me. And I was like, okay, that's all right. They like each other, but I'm the boss. And it's okay. That's how it should be. And as I've built this team and now have a leadership team and those that I lean on, it's part of that supportive relationship stuff that, those are our core values. And I will have bad days. But the last 6 months, I had to get really real with my self-awareness. Someone else turned in their notice on Sunday. I talked to the team and I'm like, yeah, it sucks. We're all going to have to do a little extra, but I have every confidence that we have the team to do this and we're going to make it work. Like, we persevere no matter what. And it's a little self-talk. It's a little yoga. It's a lot of kickboxing. And for a long time, I made sacrifices that no one even knew. Like when 23, I cut my salary in half. I had short-term health care, while the team that has, Blue Cross Blue Shield with a low deductible plan, I don't have any of that. And I got a little resentful because I was sacrificing so much for them. They had no idea. And, when people questions when we had to lay people off, and I said, we don't have a line of credit. This is all like, I pay taxes on any revenue. I'm like, I'm not going to mortgage my house or, take out a home equity loan to make payroll. So we got to be real. And that was really eye-opening to a few employees. And I'm like, I don't make these decisions on what's best for me, because believe me, half the team has salaries higher than I did at that point. And I haven't had a tax return in 8 years because of all the things you get to pay as a business owner.
Yeah.
But just being real, there's stuff that they don't know because they are young professionals, most of them. But I added the business coach. We had an EOS implementer who was fantastic for 4 years that really helped us get our shit together and our vision. Now we work with a system and soul coach who's more about the people and the KPIs, but also took on that COO seat that really, really helped me and became the yin to my yang, right? So I'm that visionary, but I can do the work, but someone who really gets the numbers and can help me make the tough decisions. But also, I'm not alone. And that's been incredible. But yeah, just being open to the team, like, this sucks, but we're going to get through it.
Yeah, well, your employees, they're not your friends. They're just not. It's much as we love to think that we want the same things, we're completely motivated by different things than the team is. It's just the reality of being a business owner. You're right. It's like being on an island, and it can be lonely in your friend groups too. If people don't really understand the daily struggles, they not only do they not understand when things are going well and you're just talking about your life, you sound like you're bragging. Because I can understand why they wouldn't want to ride with the boss, because nobody wants to look like a kiss ass. So,
That was a long time ago. Some will ride with me now, especially to events, but some are still afraid to ride with me because of the way I drive. But I will say, some on the team, they are friends. And, it's a big blow to you when, a senior account manager who's been with you for 3.5 years leaves. Because there's a void in that personality and all the hilarious memes and gifts she always shared in our fun chat. But, there's a few key people on the team that check in on me too. Like, how are you holding up? How are you doing? And that's rare. That's really rare. Even some subcontractors like Sarah, they're like, you just suck people in at Red66. Like, they want to be a part of it. And even our creative director was a subcontractor, hadn't worked in-house at an agency in 20 years, had been on her own. She's like, nope, not going to do it. Not going to do it. She's been full-time for almost 2 years. So I was like, challenge accepted.
That's awesome. I'm glad it's worked out for you, because I could see where it could have an adverse effect too. Mm-hmm. People kind of tend to possibly use that against you. And I could see where that could possibly play out that way too. So I'm glad that's worked out, and I'm glad that you've built relationships that are just beyond that, because that's really hard to do. It's rare, and I would just encourage you not to take it so personally when somebody moves on for a better opportunity, because I think eventually everyone's going to at some point.
Oh yeah, no, I was very happy for her. I mean, she called me and I was like, "This is awesome for you personally, professionally and things like that. No one's going to stay forever, but grateful for everything that they did for the team and helped us grow, and who we are is because of them. Anyone who's left before, and there isn't anyone where I would be happy to see them leave. I want to see them all grow professionally, and I want to provide as much opportunity at Red 66 as I can. But I'm excited to see them grow, because they are young. No one's going to stay forever.
Yeah, and you can't help but just feel a connection with somebody that helped you build your business, and you see their personal growth. I remember when Jen pulled back, she's still doing some stuff for us here and there, but she's probably 10-15% of what she was at her peak. And I remember when she finally had to pull back because she just got other stuff going on and bigger and better things, and hey, good for her, I'm happy for her. But at the same time, I felt something. Surely you can't not feel something when somebody's worked that closely with you for 10 years and been so ingrained in your client relationships, and that you've trusted so thoroughly with everything that you have going on. There's a lot of trust that goes on in our industry because you're literally putting them in front of your clients, and you expect them to act professionally and be a good representation not only of your brand but you too. So I totally identify with that.
Well, and several of the clients that I have today still, a couple I had at Mindscape, so that goes back 2008, and a few from other agencies that I worked at. So as an owner, if anyone on my team were to leave or start their own, you're vulnerable that way, right? They could take some clients with you.
You don't have non-competes?
No, because that's stupid.
No, all of our contractors have an 18-month non-compete.
I mean, we do ask for the contractors, but employees, they're hard to enforce. They're a pain in the butt, and I didn't like it when people try to hold me to it. People are going to be people, but that's why we treat them right, and just do the best we can.
Yeah, I think you needed to protect yourself. I think that's important. You have a different philosophy. Hey, more power to you. So, talking to an audience that is potentially looking to get into this industry, would you dispense the advice that they should get a job in this industry before branching out on their own?
If they haven't worked in this industry before, probably, yeah, because you're going to learn a lot of different things. Key things I took away from the different agencies I worked for were, one was very, very project driven. So cash flow was very up and down. That's hard when you have payroll or regular bills to pay, monthly tools and things like that. Another was very much virtual. So there were 3 full-time employees, but everyone else was a 1099. But they also bought a lot of media that they then they would mark up and pay. But if customers were slow to pay them, they were slow to pay their bills, and that really interrupted cash flow. And I remember all those calls for accounts payable. The other, I learned about our project reports that we send every month, because they see everything we've done. They get their metrics. We have a meeting, but that comes around the time they get their invoice, because the project-driven company tried to go to a monthly retainer model, but they didn't have account managers or reporting or anything in place. And I've been the one that got those calls when they got their invoice. What did you do? For months. What did you do? What? I don't know what I'm paying for. And it wasn't that work wasn't being done most of the time. There was no report for them to see the impact. Learn those lessons. But if, there's a lot of freelance opportunities and, starting your own LLC, looking at recurring revenue and cash flow is important. And I would say get yourself a good bookkeeper, but understand it yourself. I did a lot of it on my own, but a CPA and there's a lot of organizations that support entrepreneurs. I mean, here in West Michigan, there's Grow, there's Spring GR, there's Start Garden, there's a lot of them. But ask for help. Don't do it alone.
Yeah, I can't speak enough about getting an accounting firm on retainer. We're lucky enough to have an accounting firm. They do both our books and our taxes personally and corporate. And so they just handle it all. And it takes like I haven't even logged into my QuickBooks account in probably a year because they've got a team member assigned to my account. So shout out to Horner and Gear. Appreciate you guys.
Nice. Yeah. My firm, the owner retired, so they did our payroll and everything. I now have a separate payroll company, bookkeeper, and CPA, but my numbers and my books are in better shape than they ever have been. And so, that's all stuff I've learned along the way. When I was a few $100,000, in 2020 to 1.5 million last year, you got a lot of growing pains and lessons along the way.
It's just an easy thing to neglect. Your accounting, just updating QuickBooks.
Oh my goodness.
All your expenses, you got to categorize them. And it doesn't take very long to get in there and do it if you do it every day. But it's just such an easy thing to forget about. Yeah. And it doesn't become important until it's important. And then all of a sudden you're scrambling. Mm-hmm. So don't ask me how I know that.
Oh, I know that too. Yeah. I remember having to reconcile it all myself. It was a lot. Even when I was that much smaller, it was a lot.
I really appreciate you coming by for a chat. I've enjoyed this very much.
It's been fun.
Went better than I thought it would. My expectations were high.
All right.
So thank you so much for coming by. I really appreciate you, Rebecca.
Happy to be here. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah.
I will say persistence and believing in yourself are the most important things if you're going to, start an agency and do your own thing. But surround yourself with like-minded people that are going to be there to support you and build you up when you don't feel like you can. Like Mike.
That is an awesome soundbite to end on. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Hey, thanks so much for checking out my video. I really appreciate it. Hey, can you do me a favor and take a second and just leave a comment. Let me know what you thought of today's episode. And if there's a topic you'd like to see covered on a future video, or if there's a guest that you think I should maybe try to interview, I'd love to hear from you. Thank you so much. And hey, as a token of my appreciation, enjoy these outtakes from today's episode. Here today with one of my personal heroes, the one and only Rebecca Dutcher of Red66. Thank you so much for being here. It's awesome to have you.
My pleasure. What an introduction.
Yeah, I specifically didn't tell you that I was going to do that. I wanted a natural reaction.
Great. My cheeks are getting flushed.
Just deliberately pause for a few seconds and it puts a flat line in the audio. You know right where to cut.
Nice.
Yeah, so don't worry about uncomfortable silences.
With you, I've never worried about uncomfortable silences.
It's more about the uncomfortable things that come out of my mouth. We're totally going to air that. We're going to have an outtake reel. It's going to be way more entertaining than the actual podcast.
Absolutely. Oh my goodness.